Everyone's talked about the might of the Russian military versus Ukrainians and what the Ukrainians have to offer. The Ukrainians haven't lost as much ground as people might have feared, given the might of the Russian-backed separatists. Well, how good are the Russians and how much money are they putting into defence?
The Russians have doubled their defence expenditure in the last 6 to 7 years. It has been a huge increase. Now, whether they can sustain this or not, we're not entirely sure. It really depends on the oil price.
OK, let's say the oil price is where it is now. We talked with Michael earlier on, but it could be in this range for quite a while as well. Can the Russians afford to carry on that kind of increase of defence expenditure?
We think they could probably keep up for another 18 to 24 months.
And are they likely to go on more military adventures around Eastern Europe in order to sustain this? Or to keep it?
No, that's an interesting question. I mean, it's the Baltics could potentially be the next one. They are feeling much more empowered. Their military is significantly better than it was in Georgia. They've learned a lot of operational lessons, spent a lot of money.
To which leads to my obvious next question: how do they square up against the West in Europe at the moment? I mean, West is, I noticed Germany, United Kingdom, we're all very high up there in terms of defence exporters. France as well. But I mean, does the Western European resources match what Russia have to offer?
Well, it's political will, and as talked about earlier, they're not meeting their 2% goals as part of NATO requirements. So there is this potential weakness. People are not sure what the relative comparisons are anymore, and because there's been such a degree of change in the last 10 years.
I just wanted to take you back to Saudi Arabia, really. So, according to your report, Saudi Arabia and the UAE together imported $8.6 billion in defence systems in 2014.
Yeah.
Where are all these weapons going? I mean, there's long been a suspicion, and I think many have tried to establish that there is a route out of Saudi to Turkey or to Croatia, then the weapons are turned round and end up back in the region with ISIS or some other Syrian rebel group.
Right.
Is this the reality, that actually these weapons are falling into the hands of the terror organisations by a circular route?
I think when you get down to sort of weapons beneath 57mm or munitions, there's certainly some of those weapons are being pushed on, but when the bulk of that sort of 8 billion we talked about there for Saudi and UAE, I mean, they're very, very large fighter programs or very large air defense programs, and you can't move those on. It's very obvious where they've come from, and you need the support and logistics chain to keep those systems operational. So they're not being carried on. So the bulk of it, the overwhelming bulk of it, is certainly not being moved on to third parties.
So you don't feel that the constant apparent supply of ISIS and other rebel groups is a result of arms shipments into the Middle East or through the Middle East?
Certainly, I mean, there are some countries who are definitely acquiring, certainly anti-tank weapons, small arms, munitions, and pushing those on into various actors in what's become, the sort of failed area of Syria and Iraq.